You know that feeling when your mind just won't quit?
Oh, absolutely.
You're trying to concentrate, maybe on work, maybe just trying to wind down, but your thoughts are off somewhere else, replaying old stuff, worrying about what's next.
That constant mental hum. Yeah,
We've all been there, right?
yeah,
You can be doing something and suddenly realize your brain has completely checked out.
definitely. That sense of being mentally somewhere else, sort of disconnected from the present moment,
Yeah.
it's pretty universal.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at a really interesting way to find a bit more mental quiet,
Okay.
but maybe without resorting to traditional, seated meditation all the time.
Right. So what's the source for this?
It's based on the book Left Brain, Right Brain by Nito Jern and some ideas explored on the YouTube channel Simply Life.
Ah, interesting. And what's compelling about this approach is it suggests a path to a calmer mind that might click with people who, find the usual meditation stuff a bit challenging.
Exactly. Because you hear mindfulness and you might picture like hours of sitting in silence.
Which can feel like just another thing to do.
Yeah, another chore. But this isn't about intense discipline or escaping to some retreat. This method actually came out of the everyday life of someone pretty ordinary, a person known as Okan.
And that's a really key point, isn't it? It makes it so relatable.
Totally.
It's not the story of some lifelong guru or someone who's, dedicated their whole life to spiritual practice on a mountaintop somewhere.
Right. So the big question we're tackling in this deep dive is how can an ordinary person, without any extreme experiences, actually achieve a significant shift in their awareness and experience a much quieter mind?
It's interesting. You can sort of draw a parallel here with Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor's experience.
Ah, from my stroke of insight.
Exactly. The YouTube channel called it Whole Brain.
Hmm.
Both explore those roles of the left and right brain and that experience of silencing the inner chatter.
Definitely. But Nitogen's book, Through Okan's Story, suggests this shift isn't just limited to like a rare brain event.
Right.
It suggests it's something we can all potentially access through self-awareness and consistent everyday practices. It's a more hopeful idea, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Because Taylor's experience, while incredibly profound, came from a very specific, very unusual medical situation.
Yeah.
Okan's story suggests there's this potential within us, maybe more universally.
Okay, so here's where it gets really intriguing. The book's initial conclusion, and it might sound a bit odd at first, is the answer is to drop into your belly.
Slightly amused. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the usual advice you hear about mindfulness, is it?
Not at all.
Makes you wonder what on earth that means.
Absolutely. Sounds a bit strange, right?
Wow.
But stick with us. We promise we're going to unpack exactly what that means.
Okay.
So to get there, we'll explore 5 key things from the book. First, why Okan's thoughts just suddenly vanish.
Vanished.
Second, this idea of how life is interconnected, that feeling of being part of something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Third, the 3 different ways our consciousness seems to work, kind of like modes.
Okay, 3 modes.
Fourth, why those automatic thoughts, that inner voice, are so incredibly hard to stop.
Yeah, the sticky ones.
And finally, how we might actually be able to reach a more stress-free state of mind.
So by looking at those 5 areas, we can
Mhm.
start to understand this slightly unusual advice about the belly and how it fits in.
Exactly. So by the end of our chat today, you should have a much clearer picture of a potentially more accessible way to get a quieter mind than maybe you thought possible with just traditional meditation. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. First point. Why did Okan's thoughts suddenly disappear? Now, Okan, or Nito June, the author she's presented in the book as, well, an everyday housewife,
Mm-hmm.
husband working an office job, a daughter in high school, pretty typical family life.
And it's so important to keep stressing that, isn't it? This wasn't triggered by some huge life crisis or an intense spiritual quest.
Not at all. No years meditating under a waterfall, no backpacking through India searching for answers.
No extreme practices.
None. This happened right in the middle of her regular daily life through consistent everyday actions she was taking.
Which really makes you pause, especially when you think about how hard it traditionally is to quiet the mind.
Totally. The source even mentions Shinran Shonin, a figure in Japanese Buddhism. Apparently, he spent like 20 years in intense practice on Mount High and still reportedly struggled with worldly thoughts.
Oh, wow. That contrast really highlights how significant Okan's experience was. That sort of challenges that common idea that you need immense hardship or very specific circumstances to find mental stillness.
Now, Oken did have a background interest in psychology, psychiatry, that kind of thing.
Okay.
It stemmed from a time earlier in her life when she had some physical symptoms linked to her mental state psychosomatic illness.
Ah, okay. So that sparked an interest.
Yeah, and it led her to explore these ideas, sort of self-exploration, for nearly 30 years. So there was a foundation of inner inquiry there.
So while it wasn't some dramatic external thing that flipped the switch, there was definitely a history of personal exploration, a desire to understand the mind.
Right, and then, the moment it happened, she was sitting at a computer, at home, normal day,
Just like that.
and her thoughts just stopped, like a switch was flicked. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That constant inner commentary, just gone.
The way it's described, it wasn't like a slow fade out. It was sudden,
Hmm,
complete silence.
yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
She said the initial feeling was this profound sense of stillness all around her, her usual inner voice, the one narrating everything,
Yeah.
totally silent. She felt deeply calm. Her awareness seemed to just expand. She even noticed her gaze felt different, like really direct and steady.
Those kinds of immediate sensory shifts often come up in accounts of significant changes in consciousness, that sudden quiet, a different way of perceiving things.
And then she said that everyday things in her room looked more vivid, almost like they were sparkling, like seeing them for the first time. And this was followed by this powerful wave of emotion and a really deep feeling of coming home.
Coming home. That's a phrase you hear a lot of these kinds of accounts, isn't it?
Yeah, like being liberated from this heavy weight she hadn't even fully realized she was carrying.
The sense of returning to something fundamental, recognition.
And what's truly incredible, according to the source, is that her mind has stayed largely quiet for several years since this happened.
It wasn't just a fleeting moment then.
No. She continues to enjoy this peaceful mental state, feels physically vibrant. It's stuck.
That sustained change really underlines the potential depth of this kind of shift. It wasn't just a temporary mood.
And this whole experience, the sudden shift, her reflections on it, and how others might achieve something similar, that's what she shares in the book, Left Brain, Right Brain.
Okay, which leads nicely into our second point, how life is interconnected.
Right.
Because the state Okan describes, it sounds quite similar, actually, to the goals of some early Buddhist schools, Abhidharma Buddhism specifically.
Okay, Abhidharma. Let's unpack that a little. What's the connection?
Well, in simple terms, Abhidharma aimed for this state of pure stillness, kind of beyond our usual sense of time flowing.
Okay.
And the source suggests Okan's experience being free from regrets about the past, not anxious about the future, just fully in the present moment, resonates strongly with that ideal, being completely now.
Right. Moving beyond dwelling on yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, just inhabiting the present.
Exactly.
And Okan herself found that concepts that can sound a bit abstract, like soul or we're all one consciousness, life's interconnected.
Things you might read about.
Yeah. Suddenly they weren't just ideas anymore. They became real, like physical sensations for her after her consciousness shifted.
It moved from intellectual knowledge to a felt sense, a bodily knowing.
There's a quote from the book that really jumped out at me. What truly moves your heart is knowing that the world is connected on a deeper level and that you are part of that great connection.
That's powerful.
It shows how her understanding of that huge question, what am I, wasn't a puzzle anymore. It became this felt sense of belonging.
That shift from head knowledge to heart knowledge or gut knowledge is often a key feature of these profound insights. It's just a different way of knowing.
This immediately made me think of Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor again, her stroke experience.
Right, the whole brain idea.
Yeah, that left brain hemorrhage basically shut down her inner monkey mind, her ego chatter.
A very dramatic event leading to a temporary but huge shift in perception.
She described losing the sense of where her body ended and the rest of the world began. Feeling like this vast energy field, as big as the universe, immersed in this silent, blissful ocean.
The sense of separateness just dissolved when the inner talk stopped.
Unity.
Exactly. Taylor felt this connection to the source of life itself, the universe's energy, once that internal chatter was gone.
And this is where we see that key similarity with Okan, isn't it?
The silencing of the internal monologue, whether through a stroke or, as Okan suggests, through other means, seems to open a door to understanding interconnectedness, being part of something much bigger.
And the really crucial point the book makes is that, unlike Taylor's unique situation, Okan's story suggests this sense of connection doesn't require a dramatic, traumatic event.
Right.
It can be realized through changes in our everyday awareness.
Which is a much more hopeful perspective for most of us, right? It's
Right.
not about waiting for a crisis.
Exactly. Okay, so we've looked at why her thoughts might have stopped and this resulting sense of connection. Now, let's get practical. How can ordinary folks like us potentially experience this?
Right. The how-to.
The book outlines 5 stages, apparently, and the first one, maybe not surprisingly, is learning to stop our thoughts, or at least manage them.
And the book says to do that well, it helps to first understand how thoughts arise, like figuring out how the machine works before you try to adjust it.
Makes sense. And that's where Okan's unique concept comes in the 3 types of consciousness. The YouTube channel called it Okan style.
Okay.
It's described as really intuitive. The book uses illustrations, apparently, to make it easier to grasp, even if you know nothing about psychology or neuroscience. It's meant to be very relatable.
Personifying different aspects of consciousness can be a really useful way to make these abstract ideas feel more tangible, more understandable.
So the first type is consciousness focus. This is basically your core awareness.
Be the observer.
Yeah, exactly. The part that holds your memories, your sense of I. The book stresses that this you stays constant. It's the main character in your life story, even if your conscious experience shifts around.
Okay, so there's a stable chord. That's reassuring.
The second is Mr. Sano Isho. This is the part doing the verbal thinking.
The inner commentator.
Right. The narrator, the planner, the one helping you navigate society with language, rules, time, all that. It tends to get stuck in the past or future, struggles a bit with just being present. But interestingly, the source says, while Mr. Sano can feel like the villain, sometimes that inner critic,
Yeah, we all know that voice.
ultimately, he's actually a valuable partner. We need those functions.
That's a helpful way to frame it. Acknowledges the frustration, but also the necessity for planning, communication, daily life stuff.
And finally, number 3 is Miss Uno Sano. This represents our intuition.
Ah, the right brain counterpart.
Yeah, depicted as more childlike, playful, doesn't use words, it communicates through images, feelings, gut hunches.
Like a song popping into your head.
Exactly. Or noticing a picture, a flower, a random line in a book. It's connected to those aha moments, always in the now. And crucially, it's the part that can help quiet down Mr. Sano's chatter.
So intuition isn't some mystical thing, but just another aspect of our awareness, operating differently from verbal thought, always available.
And the source clarifies. These aren't separate personalities, like in a clinical sense.
Right.
They're different functional modes of consciousness. The book calls it functional consciousness, working together with your body to create your whole experience, like different tools in a kit.
A model showing different ways we process things and experience the world all working together. Makes sense.
Okay, so step 1 is quieting thoughts. We've met Mr. Sano, the talker. So the next big question, why is it so incredibly hard to stop those automatic thoughts? It feels like trying to turn off a faucet that just keeps dripping.
Yeah, and understanding how Mr. Sano, or that left brain verbal activity, works is presented as the key to getting some handle on that constant chatter.
Because honestly, most of us have this almost nonstop internal dialogue, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okan's experience of having that just stop and being able to instantly drop back into the present and stay there, it sounds almost like a superpower.
It really does highlight how much our minds are usually occupied by this narration, often without us even choosing it.
And a natural worry might pop up here. If the left brain, Mr. Sano, handles all this crucial stuff, scheduling, time, communication isn't trying to quiet it down, maybe.
Yeah.
Risky for just functioning day to day.
That's a very logical concern. And the book actually says that fear itself is often a product of the left brain trying to protect its job.
Clever. So this is where neural pathways come in.
Okay.
Think of them like trails in your brain that thoughts follow. Every time a thought travels a certain path, that path gets stronger, more established.
Like walking the same road over and over.
Exactly. And paths you don't use tend to fade, weaken over time. Use it or lose it, basically.
For brain circuits, yeah. The more we think certain thoughts, the easier it is to think them again. It becomes automatic.
So the more Mr. Sano thinks, the stronger those thinking pathways get. And apparently, Mr. Sano has a neat trick to keep this going. He gets our consciousness focus involved in repetitive thinking about ourselves, the past, the future stuff that isn't happening right now,
Mhm.
because this activity provides like nourishment for those neural pathways. It keeps them firing.
Almost like the brain rewards itself for thinking, even if the thoughts aren't helpful. It just wants the activity.
And here's the kicker. These automatic thoughts often trigger negative emotions. How?
Hmm.
By running hypothetical scenarios or dwelling on people or problems that aren't even physically present.
Ah, so creating internal drama.
Totally. Which leads to cycles of anger, sadness, worry, which then feeds back into the left brain's need for activity. It becomes this self-perpetuating loop.
So those negative thought patterns get really ingrained, reinforcing the pathways, making it even harder to step out of them.
Exactly. And that, according to the book, is the main reason why automatic thoughts feel so incredibly hard to stop. It's a built-in self-sustaining system.
It's a fascinating biological perspective on a very common human struggle, isn't it? Trying to quiet your own mind.
Okay, so we get why thoughts are so sticky. Now, the practical bit. How do we actually start moving towards this more stress-free state? The source says it's important to get to know our consciousness focus better.
Right. Moving from understanding the problem to looking at solutions.
Think about your heart beating.
Yeah.
It just happens, right?
Right.
Automatically.
You don't consciously control it.
It's an autonomous process keeping you alive. Well, here's the surprising parallel the book draws. Thoughts operate on a very similar automatic mechanism.
Really?
Yeah. The brain just spontaneously generates thoughts, past reflections, future worries, courtesy of Mr. Sano. They just arise.
So the initial thought popping up isn't necessarily a conscious choice.
Right. But then, and here's the crucial bit, our consciousness focus, our sense of I, tends to grab onto these thoughts. It claims ownership,
Huh.
adds the I.
I think this. I feel that.
Exactly, which creates the illusion that we are consciously initiating every single thought.
That mistaken identification.
Yeah.
Believing we're in complete conscious control of thoughts that are often just spontaneous brain activity.
The source even briefly mentions some psychological research suggesting we might only become aware of deciding to think after the brain's already started the process. There's a link to a video on that if you're curious.
Wow, that really challenges our gut feeling about free will and thoughts, doesn't it? Like our conscious awareness is playing catch up.
And that mistaken belief, I am my thoughts, is why letting go feels so weird, even scary sometimes.
Right.
The fear is, if I stop thinking, I'll lose myself. I won't be able to function. I'll be isolated.
The ego feels threatened by the absence of thought because it's so tied up with it.
But the key insight here is, I and thought are actually separate things. Thinking is a brain function, like breathing. It's something the brain does. It's not inherently you.
Realizing that difference, that you are the awareness of the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves, that's a massive step towards getting some space.
And focusing on the present, the book says, doesn't mean you suddenly lose all those essential Mr. Sano functions. We have tools now. Smartphones, AI.
External brains, almost.
Yeah, they can handle reminders, scheduling, communication, take some load off the internal to-do list.
Technology can externalize some of those left brain tasks, freeing up mental bandwidth.
But even without gadgets, the book reassures us.
Mm-hmm.
Truly important stuff will still surface from the left brain when needed. They give an example of Oken suddenly remembering a tax deadline.
Ah, okay, so the essential info still gets through. You don't need to constantly micromanage every thought.
Right. So learning to trust Mr. Sanu to handle the important bits lets you rest more peacefully in the now. And the core practice for actually starting to quiet things down,
What is it?
repeatedly making yourself aware, I am not my thoughts.
That's foundational in a lot of mindfulness practice, isn't it? Creating that separation between the observer and the observed, not identifying with every mental blip.
And the book offers a specific technique for this. Consciously take the I out of arising thoughts.
How does it work?
So instead of I'm feeling frustrated, you'd mentally note, there's a feeling of frustration here today. Instead of my boss is so annoying, maybe there's something causing annoyance related to my boss's words.
Detaching it from yourself.
Exactly. I hate my job, I want to quit. Becomes there's a feeling of wanting to escape this job. You observe the thought or feeling without instantly making it you.
By removing the I, you create distance. It stops the thought from hardening into your identity in that moment. It's just something you're aware of, not something you are.
Precisely. Holding on to the I fuels Mr. Sano. Removing it disrupts the cycle. The source says, try it. Next time a thought pops up, just try removing the I.
It's subtle, but it sounds like it could be really powerful in changing how we relate to our inner world.
And now, finally, we get to the mysterious instruction, dropping into the belly. Unniordu.
Ah, the belly thing.
This is presented as the actual breathing technique Okan found helpful, so it's not just metaphorical, it's a physical practice.
Okay, so it combines the mental shift with a physical anchor.
Right. And like any training exercise, learning a skill, it's not instant.
No magic bullet.
Exactly. You don't do it once and achieve nirvana. It needs consistent practice to build those new neural pathways, leading eventually to a noticeable shift, building a new mental habit.
Consistency is always key with retraining the mind, establishing new awareness patterns.
So here's the basic technique. Slow, natural, deep breaths. Try to keep a gentle smile.
Okay, smile helps.
And as you breathe, visualize a round, flat platform inside your belly. Any material, any size, initially maybe bottle cap sized, growing eventually to fill your abdomen.
A visualized platform. Got it.
On the inhale, picture it gently going down from your inner neck, through your organs, all the way to the bottom of your belly. Pause.
Inhale, platform down.
On the exhale, picture it slowly rising back up, passing through again to your neck.
Exhale, platform up.
Yeah. That visualization helps focus your attention, anchors you in the physical sensation of belly breathing, which is often calmer anyway.
Right, deeper breath.
The advice is practice this whenever you can, in those little gaps between tasks during the day, just to reduce that excessive thinking.
Little resets throughout the day.
Yeah. The Simply Life YouTube host even shared they felt more focused, fewer intrusive thoughts while doing this belly drop breathing. Felt pleasant, refreshing.
So there can be immediate noticeable benefits for some people, not just theoretical.
And this technique, consciously putting your consciousness focus in your belly, apparently it has deeper meanings the book goes into.
Oh.
It's not just about the breathing mechanics. It suggests a shift in where you're centering your awareness, maybe grounding you more in the body and the present.
Interesting. Connecting the physical center, breath, and mental quiet.
The book also apparently gets into the deeper meaning and the next steps. Connecting with Mizuno, intuition, trusting it, choosing the now, handling Mr. Sano's resistance.
No pushback.
Yeah, and what's called the final battle for rescue. It's laid out as a path for ordinary people toward mindfulness.
Sounds like a structured, progressive approach.
Yeah.
Different stages to work through.
And interestingly, it also includes techniques for manifesting desires, connecting focal points, apparently. A practical take on the law of attraction from this consciousness perspective.
Okay, so it links inner peace with potentially creating intentionally in your life too. Another layer.
But maybe the most profound part highlighted is Okan's own description of reality as she perceived it once her thoughts quieted down.
Back to that interconnectedness.
Exactly. Reinforcing that theme, the unity of life, the understanding that comes when the mental noise fades.
So the goal isn't just a quiet mind, but a fundamentally different perception of self and the world.
Right. The source really encourages anyone intrigued by this to get the book, read it, explore it more deeply, really dive into the world of the right brain with Okan.
Sounds like a really comprehensive resource, blending personal experience with practical steps.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into this really fascinating idea, achieving mindfulness without necessarily relying only on traditional meditation, all inspired by Okan's experience in left brain, right brain.
It's a perspective that really emphasizes the potential for peace and change right within our ordinary lives, which I think is a very encouraging message.
It really is, and it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If that constant stream of thoughts isn't really us, truly us, what amazing possibilities might open up if we create just a bit more space, a space for a different kind of awareness.
Yeah.
What could it feel like to live more directly from intuition, from that connection to the present moment? Maybe experience that interconnected, peaceful reality Okan talks about. It's definitely something to think about. Maybe not think about, but feel into.
It really invites us to question our relationship with our own minds, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And explore if there's a different, maybe more fulfilling way to just be.
We're already looking forward to our next deep dive with you. Until then, maybe give that belly breathing a try. See what happens.